and welcome back to our Ellipse Unsealed podcast. Today we have with us a very special guest, Adam Berezin. Is that correct?
Berezin, close.
Berezin.
Everybody gets it wrong.
The emphasis was almost there. You had
got
the right.
B right. The B right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the hardest part.
Give you that. Yeah.
That's my worst thing about I do some personal podcasts and even at DynamicsCon Live, I was on stage with Andrea Riviezzo, and I asked her 17,000 times how to pronounce her name before it. And at the very last minute, if you watch the video, you'll see me walk up to her on stage as we're getting ready, and I say, "How do you do that again?" And I still didn't get it. So whatever. I'm giving up.
Some names are just, you can't get it
and
right.
I pride myself at doing, like, pronunciating is something I was like, oh, I can read and pronunciate. But yeah, Lord, sometimes it's just awful.
Yeah. Then it goes one in ear and out the other.
Yeah, boink. Yeah, I only have so much room anymore in this old, spongeless brain to comprehend these kind of things.
Oh, Lord. Well, Adam, thanks for taking your time and joining us here on this pod. Do you kind of want to tell us a little bit about yourself to kick us off?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk with both of you. But yeah, my name is Adam Berezin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of MS Dynamics World, or MSDW, as it's more widely known. I started the business with a gentleman named Jason Gumpert, who you both know, I believe, who runs the editorial side of the business back in 2007, and we officially launched in 2008, so it's our 16th year.
Wow.
I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, although I don't know. But MSDW serves two functions in the biz app space. So the first is that we're the largest news and information resource in the world for biz apps content. And then the second function is providing very targeted demand gen programs to ISVs and partners all around the world. And we're only digital, so we don't do anything in person.
Yeah.
Nice. 16 years, that's pretty long. What did the growth process look like throughout that time span? Because I'm sure it's not always been as big as it is now.
No, I can I'll go through sort of the origin story if you'd like.
Yeah, I love it.
So at the time, actually right before, or right around the time I was kind of conceptualizing the idea, I was working for a company that essentially acted as the marketing arm for SAP. And my job at that particular organization was to basically work with partners and provide them demand gen programs and come up with programs and things like that. And as I was kind of working in the SAP space, I came across Microsoft CRM. And I had no idea at all that Microsoft A, had a CRM product, or B, really did anything other than Windows and Office. I just didn't know about the full tech stack from Microsoft. And as I was doing more research, I came across, other ERP products that they had as well. And at the time, they were really just kind of being branded under the Dynamics umbrella, but they still had disparate names, AX was Exapta, and then you had Navision and Great Plains and Solomon. So it was right around that time where I kind of started to say, okay, I don't really know much about these products and I'd like to learn more about them just for my own knowledge. And I was trying to do all this research, and the only thing I could find were basically, marketing pitches on Microsoft's site. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm a user of this, where do I go to find more information? And I guess if you're a technical user, you can go to all the different forums that were in existence, and some of them are still around. But if you're a business user, and if you're a CFO or somebody that's in charge of like kind of the software purchasing process, there wasn't any resource out there for those people. So I kind of came up with the idea, okay, maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe I can kind of start a website and provide targeted content and news to these senior level executives in the space. And then on the other side, I remember, calling all these different Microsoft ISVs. And back then, Microsoft had it was like a very bare bones partner directory, and I called, I think, like 50 ISVs, and I asked them how they generated leads in this space. And really the only ways that they generated leads were through either renting lists, which I despise list rentals. They could exhibit at a couple of trade shows, and at the time, really, there weren't a lot of trade shows. Summit was still in its infancy, and then you had Convergence as well, which is no longer in existence. Or you could really just try to kind of network and work with partners. But so there wasn't this digital platform out there that allowed these companies to effectively market themselves and generate leads. So I ended up, this is kind of a funny story. I joined this business networking group, which was actually a group for Harvard Business School alumni. And I did not go to Harvard Business School, but I didn't know how to start a business at all. And I had this idea. So I found out who the moderator of this group was. And there was about 4,000 people in this group. And I got his number and I called him, and I forget the gentleman's name, but I literally just pleaded with him and just letting him know that, hey, I really need help starting this business. I don't have any money to do it, but I really need guidance. Could you just kind of find it in your heart to let me in? So I could network with some of these people. And he kind of took pity on me and he let me in. And I ended up connecting with Jason Gumpert's father, who actually has some affiliation with Harvard. And Jason apparently was looking to start a business too. So his father connected the two of us. And then that's kind of how we got, we started building the infrastructure for MS Dynamics World. But it took a while. I think we spent about a year building it because there were two elements that we had to do. We had to figure out a way. Now, I had no connections in Microsoft. I didn't know anybody. Jason didn't know anybody either. Jason has a technical background. I kind of have more of a marketing and sales background. So we said, okay, how can we put our skill sets together and figure out how the hell to do this? So it took us about a year to really get it off the ground. But I just remember, like, when we were trying to work with all these different writers and ISVs and partners to essentially, put all this content onto MSDW, because we couldn't launch anything unless it had a lot of content already on it, because part of our whole model is to essentially get people to subscribe to the site and become active members. And no one's going to do that if there's not any content on there to begin with. But then we also needed to find a way to get consistent content on the site, every day or every week, to keep these people engaged and wanting to come back for more content. So that was a challenge in itself, because at the time we had no money at all. I mean, I think we started this thing with about $10,000, and that was it. So we had to build the site. We had to try and find writers that would contribute to the site, because we couldn't afford to pay them. And basically the promise we made was, hey, listen, we think we're onto something here. And, if you write for the site, at some point in the near future, when we get lots of visitors and lots of site members, your content will be seen by, thousands, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. So, pretty please write for us. Right. And at the time, there were a lot of MVP bloggers out there. There still are some, but not as many. And we said to them, okay, would you write for us? And then you can post the links to the articles that you wrote for us on your own blog. And as a result of that, we got thousands of site members, registered site members in the first year from all these bloggers doing that. But then we said, okay, we actually want this to be a business. So how can we make money with it? And that's where sort of the marketing infrastructure came into play. So we had to build that. And we had to think of all these demand generation programs that we could provide to ISVs and partners that could start kind of reaching out to our audience. And that was sort of another animal altogether, because we had to really come up with the lead capture infrastructure, the infrastructure to support these marketing programs as well. And everything really just had to come together. We had to make sure that we were attracting those senior level executives in this space because, we not only wanted to create content for them, but also, those people would have purchasing power for the ISV solutions that we were promoting on our site on behalf of these various ISVs. So, everything had to align, and we just kept going at it and going at it and going at it for about a year until we really started generating any amount of revenue. And the funny thing is, not to kind of go too far off on a tangent, but just kind of stepping back a little bit, it was always my ambition to start a business of some kind. I didn't know what that would be at first, and I happened to stumble across this niche. But my motivation for it was not further than, it didn't go further than anything in regards to, I just want to be able to work for myself and pay the bills. That's really all that I was concerned with. I didn't start this because I said, okay, I want to drive a Ferrari or something like that. It was just not the motivation. I just wanted to kind of control my own destiny a little bit, and build something that people would use. And that was the real motivation for that. And Jason and I have always been aligned with that vision and that goal. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've had such a successful partnership, which is super important too, because Jason and I, we have somewhat very different personalities and different skill sets. And I think that is what helps us have such a great partnership. But yeah, so it's been an interesting ride, but we have grown a lot. We have over 100,000 active registered members to the site right now. I mean, we work with hundreds of ISVs and partners each year on our marketing programs. But there were a lot of challenges at first. Getting people to kind of believe in this whole digital model, because back in 2008, it wasn't that prevalent, and especially in a niche market like this, where, as I mentioned earlier, there were only a few options to consume content, or if you're a partner, generate leads. It was just so new. So there was a learning curve.
You mentioned it from, because I was an end user at the time. And it was a lot of there were forums. Like you said, the UGs were just kind of starting and getting off the ground, and then blogs were a big thing. Like everybody discovered, Cafe Press and created a blog, or was it not HubSpot? I'm trying to think of the other big one, Big City. Somebody,
I know. I can't remember the name of it. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so there was these smaller outlets to do blogging, and so there were a lot of blogs out there where that, like you said, they've kind of shifted away from that and to more content like yours or podcast or other mediums. So yeah, interesting timing to come about to do something like this.
Yeah, it was tough. It was also right at the heart of the recession too. So not really the optimal time to launch a new business. Although, my hope was that people on the marketing side, at least, would see us as sort of this new lower cost option that was still effective. But, once again, it was really challenging to get people to believe in what we wanted to do for this particular channel. Especially once again, because neither Jason or myself had any connections in the Microsoft space. So it's not like we were these two Microsoft MVP gurus that decided to start this and people already knew us. And we were just two kids. I was like 26 or 27 at the time. And I had to kind of fight for people to essentially take us, seriously. So, that definitely was challenging. But, we just kind of kept at it and we worked through it. And, there wasn't really anything else that we could do except just kind of put our heads down and power through.
Yep. Great, by the way, great meet cute story. We got to add that in there. Just an awesome way to kind of unravel that. Everything, it's like a Malcolm Gladwell, outliers, like things just line up perfectly to get this opportunity going, a need in the market, a person who's passionate about doing something, connected with another person who's passionate. Your skill sets are complementary. I mean, just everything there was clicking for you. And I had a quick question. Was it always Microsoft Dynamics world, or did you earlier? Because a lot of people like early on when they were creating blogs were like Exapta guy, and then like 2 years later, crap, I can't be Exapta guy anymore because there's no longer Exapta. So I'll just be AX guy, and then that's dead. Now I've got to be Mount Rainier guy for like a half a minute or whatever it is, you know.
No, we've always been MS Dynamics world, and we did that once again because we saw that they were in the process of branding everything under Dynamics, and we thought, you know, at some point,
what another perfect timing aspect of it. Yeah, just where Dynamics,
which was all luck. I mean, it was pure luck. It just sounded. I thought it sounded pretty cool.
So and you couldn't like put all the time. You couldn't be like MS Dynamics AX Nav.
Exactly. Yeah, no, people would not have liked that.
No, yes,
so yeah, and it's still relevant. Although, you know, now we've expanded kind of the depth of the content a lot in the coverage areas too. You know, not just to focus on Dynamics, but also a lot of complementary technologies in the Microsoft stack, like Power Platform, Azure, Fabric, which is going to be huge, Copilot as well. So, you know, expanding out coverage areas to all these complementary technologies, you know, is also a big part of our strategy.
Yep.
But still centering around Dynamics. Yeah.
You got your subscriber base, which is huge. That was kind of the first pivotal piece, obviously, because once you've got X number, like a couple thousand subscribers in place, it makes it easier to talk to the sponsors and contributors.
Exactly.
Are there any other facets that we're missing that are like part of the ecosystem besides, you know, your people who are consuming, the people who are helping to pay for, and then the contributors?
Well, you know, I mean, that's primarily who we were trying to attract.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have a lot of people from Microsoft that read our site, and we hear about that all the time. You know, I mean, we get all sorts of people. I mean, you know, analysts will consume our content, but, you know, we don't really cater to prospective Dynamics customers. You know, and we did that purposely. The platform is really built for people that are already engaged in the community in one way, shape, or form. But yeah,
another marketing animal to try to go out and figure out where people are, you know, when they're in the market for an ERP switch or a CRM switch or any of those things.
It's an entirely different strategy to attract those people. And you need a lot of money to do that, because you're going after, you have to cast a much wider net. And to do that, you need more dollars. So, you know, we tried to just focus on, you know, being in a niche market like this. And we felt that, you know, as a result, any type of advertising or marketing dollars that we spent to generate these site members would be well spent, because we are trying to, you know, reach such a specific person that, you know, whether it's Google ads or something else, we could create those in such a way that they did attract those people. And in fact, we actually used to run a lot of Google ads, and that was part of our site member strategy for the first several years. And we generated, I think, like maybe 3,000 to 4,000 new site members a year from Google ads. But we haven't run them probably in 7 or 8 years, just because, you know, they're not as effective for us anymore, just because it's kind of like paying for redundant keywords and search terms, which we show so high up in organic results that, you know, it just didn't make any sense for us to continue that. Plus the costs have increased dramatically per keyword, per click. So, you know, when towards the tail end of that, you know, Google ad experiment, we saw that we had to spend, you know, probably 3 to 4 times as much or more to get around the same number of site members as we had, you know, a year or two ago. So it just wasn't worth it for us. So we don't really do any paid advertising at all anymore. But we still get thousands of new site members a year that subscribe to MSDW, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool that model changed over the course of the years.
Yeah, it really has. And then, you know, and to your point too about having enough site members to attract sponsors, that's a whole other animal. and there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, we have this whole proprietary lead capture system that we built ourselves. And then we also have an ABM, account-based marketing component, that's built into the back end of the site for our, our ISV and partner clients as well. And it's all about sort of getting, somewhat purchase intent data about their prospects and how they're consuming their content. And then we've expanded the business. We do over 150 sponsored webcasts a year. We run probably about 80 to 100 podcasts. The majority of those are sponsored. So, we're at some point in the near future, we're going to be getting into, I guess you can call it the research business, but, not traditional research.
Mm-hmm.
But, so we're trying to kind of expand to other areas, and we like being able to offer content to our site members in different formats, because people have different content consumption preferences. And some people like podcasts, but those same people might not want to watch a webcast or, read an article. So, it's just important to give people, lots of different options to consume content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I was looking at your site, and you have an abundance of different ones, like you said, even like case studies, like you said, webinars. Quick question for maybe those listening who are curious. How would one go about becoming a sponsor or contributor if that was something someone might be interested in?
Yeah, so if a company wants to contribute, well, it depends on what they want to contribute. So if they want to contribute articles, we always welcome article contributions, but they have to be thought leadership focused, strategy focused, educational. We don't allow self-promotional articles. It's just not something we do.
Yeah.
But for partners and ISVs that want to get more involved in the site, we have lots of disparate programs that a lot of the times companies will say to us, hey, can you put together, a 6-month plan or an annual plan for us that uses, all these different components of A, B, and C programs, or, D, E, and F programs, or whatever. And we'll do that. So, there's lots of different ways to get involved, but we don't really, the site really isn't structured where we have like a membership package for ISVs and partners. I mean, we technically do have a partner membership, but it's really just the ability to post videos and white papers and things like that. But, there's not really this like all-encompassing sponsorship package. And we did that purposely just because, it's not really a one-size-fits-all thing. We work with so many different types of companies that have different solutions, different focus areas, that we like to be able to have all these individual programs that people can use, but we also like to give them the opportunity to have us customize stuff based on their specific goals and needs and who they want to target in the channel.
Nice. Very cool. What is your favorite thing about MSDW over all the years? Is there something that you guys have done that you have just thought is super cool, or just overall your favorite thing?
Yeah, so that's okay. That's a great question. Here, let me think about this for a sec. Well, so I think if I had to choose one of the coolest things, at least that I think we did, in 2009, we built and launched the very first full-scale virtual trade show for the Dynamics community, and it was called Decisions. Yeah, and once again, we did it because at the time people weren't traveling as much because of we were in a recession, and I thought, okay, this is a really cool way to kind of get people from all over the world into a single environment for a day or two. So we worked with this company to build this platform, and I think we had the first show, we had over 2,000 attendees, and then we ran 2 more of them, and I think at its peak it had I think a little over 4,000 attendees from 128 countries and about 60 sponsors. Yeah. So I personally, I loved that. I just thought it was so cool. The technology. Unfortunately, that technology has not advanced since 2009. So, I think the last, virtual show that we ran was back in 2020, and it was a smaller one that we kind of put on for a partner. But yeah, we haven't done one of those, full scale shows in in quite a long time. I wish the technology, it was frustrating because I always thought this is so cool. Why aren't more people adopting this
Yeah.
technology? Because it's just so easy. But I could talk about this for 10 hours. But I think kind of the shorter answer is when you go in and you have a virtual trade show, people tend to expect a similar experience to an in-person trade show, and it just doesn't happen. And I
Right.
I always equate a virtual trade show to really being a glorified content marketing exercise, which is really what it is. You have all these different sessions and content pieces at virtual booths, all kind of being offered to attendees in a very short period of time digitally. So if you kind of come at it from that expectation, then I think it can work. But it's tricky. And
I
we
don't
saw.
did you
Yeah.
see the 2020, I think it was the 2020 version of Summit, which they tried to do virtually, and it was not good. It was unfortunate. I
Really?
mean,
Yeah.
I would think they would admit the same. It wasn't a great platform.
Mm.
I think it was trying to be more like an in-person event and not like a virtual event. And it seemed to me it was kind of pretty messy and not well received at the end of the day.
Yeah, I didn't attend that. I mean, I do think it's good though that they tried to bring the summit experience to a virtual platform, just because 2020 no one was traveling to
Yeah.
trade shows. Yeah, so I mean, I definitely think it's good that they tried that. But I didn't attend it,
No, yeah,
unfortunately.
I mean, definitely. I
Um,
think people were happy to be there. It just unfortunately just I think it was again. I don't know if people's expectations weren't like you said set properly, and it just wasn't the right platform as well. I think it just whereas I think I've seen other virtual events that have worked much smoother and just been more kind of understanding the lane, and luckily we're obviously now back to in person events, which is great.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the next question
Yeah.
for you. Like, what's your community strategy? So you do a lot, obviously a lot of online stuff, but there's so many events. How do you folks
Yeah.
at MSDW handle like community involvement and strategy there?
So that's a great question. We do get involved in a lot of events. Something actually brand new for this year is, and I can get into, you'll hear more details about this as time goes on, but we just formed a really nice strategic partnership with DCI, Dynamic Communities, that runs Summit.
Hmm.
And we will be the official media partner of Summit North America. So we're going to have lots of cool stuff that we're doing in collaboration with Dynamic Communities at the event,
Yeah,
before the event as well. So that'll be really cool. And then we'll be launching additional initiatives together after the event, which should be really fun. But yeah, there's a handful of events that we like to choose to get involved with. I mean, there's so many different conferences out there, but so sometimes you have to be picky because we can't travel to every single one.
yeah,
But the ones that we have, partnered up with, are events that we just feel kind of, I guess, really. I'm trying to think of the appropriate word, but kind of define what this channel is all about.
yeah,
Um, and that's very important to us as well. Having an event is one thing, but what are the goals around the event? Do we think it's relatively newsworthy? Is it a good event for the community? I mean, does the community need an event like this? If
yeah.
so, yeah, we're up for it. We want to help promote it, give it necessary awareness, things like that. So yeah, it's events are definitely important to us. But yeah, as I mentioned, there's so many of them. We kind of have to be picky.
Yep. Are you only in country, or do you do anything? Obviously subscribers could come from anywhere, but
Yeah.
you're focused in US, or do you look outside into Europe?
Yeah, so about
America?
42% of our audience is actually based in North America.
Okay.
28% is in EMEA, 26% is in Asia Pacific, and I think it's like 2 or 3% is in South America. But we do travel to European focused events. We are the media sponsor of Dynamic Minds. Directions EMEA, a couple of others as well. So, we go all over.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool.
I have one more question. I know we're coming up on time, but this goes back a couple levels. We've had internal discussions. I've had discussions with people in similar roles in marketing. Is a webinar dead? I mean, I keep,
No.
is like a traditional webinar, do you still see these being effective? Like your kind of old school webinar, approach?
So that's a great question. And I actually, I will send you this at some point, but I kind of wanted to test out that myth. There's the webinar fatigue myth, which we actually do not see at MSDW. I did this whole analysis of our webinar stats from the past 2 years. And actually what we've seen, and I'll get into a little bit more detail about this, but overall, we've seen a 23% increase in registrations, 29% increase in attendees. The coolest, actually, there's two really cool stats that I like. The first is that we've seen a 30% increase of registrants per session, which is really cool. And then we've seen a 63% increase in the number of people that consume our on-demand webcasts once they're placed onto our video platform that we developed ourselves. So we don't see it. I think part of the reason, I think there's a couple of things, a couple of reasons why we really haven't seen that. The first is, we're so niche focused that the content that we put out is so focused, but we have the ability to be very hyper targeted with who we promote our webcasts to, because we have so much data on all of our members. We know their content interests, their solution interests, their business interests, that when we push out a particular webcast or any webcast, it only goes out to those site members of ours that are relevant, are the most relevant to that particular topic. So, therefore, it tends to attract a lot of those targeted people. So we have not seen webcast fatigue here. We run a lot of different kinds of webcasts, anywhere from, do whatever you want webcasts, to product deep dives, to panel discussions, comparison showcases, which are pretty cool, that kind of, pit 5 of the same type of solution together, and, gives partners and ISVs or partners and users a great way to kind of, quickly compare all these different, e-commerce solutions or AP automation solutions. So I think there's 8 or 9 different kinds of webcasts that we run. And part of that is to combat any potential webinar fatigue. If you're always kind of changing up the format, and the focus of events, then that greatly decreases the probability that people will get sick of them.
Yeah. That's a great response. Yeah, like I said, I love the word you use, myth, because I just keep hearing it. We've talked about it internally. Like, is this running its course, and do we need to think about shifting? Because we do webinars pretty consistently as well, and sometimes they're great, and other times we'll wonder why we didn't get the attendance we expected. But love the just the feedback from a broad sense that they're still surviving and thriving. So cool.
Yeah, they are. But it's something we keep an eye on. We have a whole process for running these. I mean, one thing that we actually do that I switched over, I think it was about maybe 5 years ago, is we used to run all these sessions, like over 150 live, which was a royal pain. There's a presenter is always late, or they can't log in, or just some tech issue. So so we switched over to a semi-live format, which I think has actually helped increase the attendees and registrants. So we'll pre-record a session with a sponsor about a week before its air date, and then we'll play it on the air date 3 separate times to give people 3 options to view the webcast. And then after the session airs, we put it into our own video platform and then push it out again. So, all those things tend to kind of help, our overall statistics. But, to your point, I mean, I think it would be hard to just run a live session and then call it a day without any, post-event promotion or, on-demand lead capture or anything like that. So you have to enhance what we were doing 5-10 years ago. But people still love webcasts.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've as long as the content is highly relevant to what they focus on, then most people will consume that. And that's
We
the most
still do ours
important thing.
live, and Savannah's in charge of wrangling all the people, all the presenters, and getting them in
Yeah.
place.
Yes. Yeah. I was just going to say, because I was on the website today and I noticed
Yeah.
the 3 different time slots. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, they redo this presentation 3 different times a day. I was like, that's intense, but that makes a lot more sense now that you just have it pre-recorded.
Yeah, she had
Yeah.
a mini heart attack. She's like, wait a second, I can't do this 3 times a day.
Yeah, I was like, is this
Yeah.
what we're
No,
doing
no.
these days?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. So we run probably, I'd say, like 98% of all of our sessions live. The only sessions that we will run, Simulive. The only sessions that we will run live are our monthly community calls, which we really started getting into last year. And we run a Portals community call, an AI community call, Power Platform, a GP, a CRM, and we're about to launch a Fabric community call as well. And these are just more like discussion based. They're less heavy on the presentation side and more sort of like, they're more like panel discussions. They're bouncing ideas off of each other, and they can take, questions from the audience. So they're much more interactive than like a regular Simulive session. And that's how they're meant to be, which is why we have them as live events.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Yeah, very nice. With the Simulive, are people able to actively ask questions when watching that, or like through a chat, or do they kind of have to reach out afterwards if they have questions?
Yeah. So what we tell people is if they have questions, they can still type them into the platform, but they will be answered after the session ends, and the presenter will follow up with them through email.
Okay.
We've tried out so many different webcast platforms. We've used a lot over the years, and I found that there's no perfect platform out there. There's platforms that have some cool features, but there's not one platform that has all of those features. Unfortunately, it's not the same as if you were asking questions during a live environment or a live session. But it's kind of the best available option for Simulive. So, for now we're going to go with that until we find another option that might be better.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Bobby, do you have anything else for Adam today?
I don't. I really appreciate it. Was a great conversation. I love learning more. I mean, I've like I said, I've known about MSDW. I've probably been a member since I was an end user, and consuming content. So it was really cool to hear the origin story and to kind of chat about some of the marketing side of it. I think that it was really insightful information for folks to consume as well.
Yeah.
So, and we're looking forward to you having you guys at our event later on in the year. We're doing our tech event. So, we'll talk more again later. It's November, past a few other events, so we'll talk about that one as we get closer. But yeah, I really appreciate having you on, Adam.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, it was awesome to chat with both of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks again for joining us, Bobby. Great chatting. So talk to you next time.
Take care.
Bye-bye.